The views and opinions expressed on Wrestling Winedown are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any other agency, organization, employer, or company. What's up, guys? It's Lo, and you are tuned in to Wrestling Winedown, a female-founded and hosted podcast dedicated to professional wrestling and our favorite adult beverage. Grab that rosé. It's going to be a big show, and I am not alone. I am joined by my guest co-host, my good friend, Iridian Fierro of the Wrestfriends Podcast, and we have a very special guest. You may have heard his vocals in WWE or on ESPN, MTV, or even School of Rock. Joe Altier, also known as Just Joe, is the vocalist behind Big Show's WWE theme, Crank It Up. We're chatting with Joe about how he got involved with WWE and the process of creating a wrestling theme song. We're also chatting about Joe's experience meeting the world's largest athlete, Big Show, Joe's current Twitch endeavors, and a very special segment that you won't want to miss. So grab your glass of wine. We're going in for the 3 count. Theme songs are so important in the world of wrestling, and we have found someone who recorded one of the most iconic wrestling theme songs in the WWE. We have Just Joe here. He recorded the Big Show theme song. How are you doing, Joe?
I'm excellent. I'm in upstate New York, and it's 70 degrees, and the sun is out, so today is a good day up here.
Perfect.
You are the voice behind one of the most iconic WWE theme songs. Were you a wrestling fan growing up?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm old enough, I'm 47. So when wrestling became to the forefront, I remember I started watching wrestling before WrestleMania. It was when I first started watching, I was going back and forth between watching WWF at that time and also on what was TBS. And they had, what would become the WCW. So I was in the back and forth, all that, and then all of a sudden it exploded through my eyes. I saw the match, not in person, but I remember watching the match between Hulk Hogan and the Iron Sheik, which basically started it. And after that, I was hooked. I was hooked as a kid.
Now, how did this opportunity to write this theme song come about? Did you originally write the song and it got picked up later, or did someone reach out to you specifically to write it?
It's a very interesting story because my band, Brand New Sin, was out on the road. We had toured with Motorhead a few times, and this was the second time we're out on the road with Motorhead, and we were playing at the Hampton Beach Casino in Hampton Beach, New Hampshire. And all day long, the crew members and the guys in the band are like, hey, Triple H and Stephanie are going to come out because Motorhead and Triple H had such a close relationship, and they had done the theme songs together. So I'm like, yeah, sure, he's going to come, and sure, they're going to watch us. But long story short, we were playing that night in the middle of the set. I'm kind of looking down, and the Hampton Beach Casino probably holds about 2,000 people, and it was near capacity. So in the middle of one of the songs, I see a couple come down in between the barricade and the stage, and they got their hair down and they're just banging like that. And I'm like, hell yeah. And I look up and goes up, and it's Triple H and Stephanie, and they're just fist bumping me. I'm like, whoa, this is crazy, So nobody else in the band really was out into wrestling except for me and my one guitar player. So I go over to my one guitar player in the middle of one of the songs. I'm like, dude, you see who's watching us? And he goes, yeah. So we get done with the set. I come down off the ramp. I go into the dressing room. I'm sitting in the dressing room, and I hear a knock on the dressing room. I open it up, and Triple H and Stephanie are like, hey, we'd love to come in and hang out. We want to talk to you guys. So we hung out for most of the night. We chatted a lot about music, and Stephanie and Triple H were both like, we really think that you guys have that sound. We got to get you involved in the WWE. And this isn't lip service. No offense to some other wrestlers that would come out and see us. This is the prince and princess. They're going to take over the company. So we knew that they were going to follow through on that. So they took some merchandise and a bunch of CDs, and they're like, we will be in touch. We'll be in touch with your manager. And lo and behold, a couple of weeks later, WWE got a hold of us and said, listen, we're going to sign a little saying that we're going to work together at some point. We just don't know on what at time. And this is May of 2005. So we did that. And then a few months later, we're on tour again in the fall in September. And we finally get a call from the WWE, and they're like, we finally have the project for you. We want you to re-record the Big Show's theme song. Because the original theme song that he had was very blues oriented. Mm-hmm. And so they're like, take that and inject what you guys do. And in a few weeks, we had like a couple of days off between a show in like Springfield, Massachusetts and Toledo, Ohio. So they're like, we'll come spend 2 days at the WWE headquarters and we'll hash this out. So that was how it came about, which was literally Triple H and Stephanie. And they became really good friends of ours. And I think I became a huge Triple H. I was always a big Triple H fan, but how could you not become one when they were the catalyst for it all?
So how long did it take you to craft this remake of Crank It Up?
We would sit in hotel rooms because we weren't really ever home that much at that time in our career or really on the road. So it was like sitting in hotel rooms, kind of listening to it. And we had an idea of what we were going to do with it, but we had no way of recording it and sending it. At that time, we didn't, there was no smartphones or Facebook. I think MySpace was still in its infancy and all that stuff. So there's no way of really showing the WWE what we were doing. They were just putting in their trust that we were going to come in, do our thing. But they had blocked out 10 hours of studio time, which, everything was, we went to WWE headquarters and everything is like there. And like, to watch that operation is a whole other thing to see behind the scenes, not only at the headquarters, but like backstage. It was such a fun experience.
Once you had the final, song and it was ready to go, did you get to sit with Big Show to listen to it? Or did you get to meet him? What was that like?
Yeah, well, we recorded the song, and this was, like I said, in the fall of 2005. And then we were just immediately back out on the road. And then I believe at that time, then he got hurt shortly after that. And they were getting ready to kind of rebrand his character. A few weeks later, about a month later, WWE, we had another day off on that same tour. And they're like, why don't you come meet us in Indianapolis and come to Raw, meet Vince and Big Show and just spend the day, hanging out. And that was the day that we got to go in. And then Big Show came in and we hung out with him for the day. And he was in the middle of a lot of things, but they had not given us the song yet. We had not heard it. And he's like, I haven't heard it yet. And I heard that you guys are great. So at that moment, we hadn't heard much. And then he had so much to do that Triple H at that time was not wrestling. He was doing some other stuff. And he took us around and gave us the grand tour of the entire day. So, but when we finally got to meet Big Show, he's so big. I don't think people realize, when you see it on TV, there's no way of a point of reference. You can kind of tell, but all these wrestlers are large. But when you meet the guy, and my drummer was 6'2", 6'3", and he didn't even come up to his shoulder. And all of us, I'm like 5'10". Big Show shook our hand, and it literally felt like a little baby, shaking this large hand. It was the sheer, and he was much larger then. I think he was 500 pounds at the time. But man, he was just I'm like, how do you do things in life being this large? It's obnoxious to see someone that large. It's crazy.
When did you hear the final version of the song?
I think it was over the winter. We had some time off, and then we finally got an email and we got to hear the song, and it had all the bells and whistles on it, because the day we recorded it was such a whirlwind, because they were not only recording us, but they were getting ready for Raw that night. We recorded on a Monday. So they were putting all the final touches on all the vignettes and all this other stuff in the studio. So there was a lot of chaos going on. So it was tough to kind of see where they were going to take the song. Jim, who did all the theme songs from 1984 all the way up until a few years ago. That guy just was a genius behind all. So we finally heard the song and we're all like, wow. I'm like, this sounds so cool. And then they said to us, they're like, Big Show's coming back. And that was when they decided they bought ECW, and they were going to put Big Show as one of the main guys in ECW. So they're like, okay, it's going to be a few more months, but we're going to use it, and we're going to use it for the first time. I want to say it was May or June of 2006 when they had that ECW pay-per-view. Mm-hmm. And we were actually in New York City recording a record, and we got to, they gave us a code to watch the pay-per-view, and that was when they debuted that theme song. So from 2006 all the way up until, now he's off into AEW, so he doesn't use the theme song. But everybody knows that theme song now. It's crazy,
Yeah, that theme song is iconic, and it's one of my favorites. If you could write a song for anyone right now wrestling, do you have someone in mind who you would want to write for?
Oh, man. Well, I mean, he just retired, but I mean, my favorite all-time wrestler of all time was Undertaker. Always. But I mean, as for newer people, I don't know. I kind of lost touch with a lot of the newer things because so much is fractured in the past few years. There's so much. I mean, there's NXT and I would love to like find some young guy, you know, let's find some unknown and let's shape something for him, you know, and give him something that like, I mean, because that's the best thing about a theme song. Like when you heard the broken glass, you knew here comes Stone Cold, or you hear my voice, you knew Big Show was coming out. You know, or The Rock. Like there were so certain things that you heard that, and that erupted before anything happened. So I would love to do that for some new guy that's up and coming. And there's so many amazing young wrestlers that I'm seeing on NXT.
Was Big Show the only WWE superstar that you've written a theme song for? Had you ever written a wrestling theme song before his?
No, we had never done that. So, you know, I mean, because, you know, how do you even do that? You know, like, how do you even get that opportunity? Like, everyone's like, how did you get that opportunity? I'm like, we literally from Triple H and everybody. Now that he's moved over to AEW, and everyone's like, well, why don't you just like write him a new theme song and call people? I'm like, well, do you think just because I did one thing, I can make a phone call? I'm like, yeah, hey, it's me, you know, like we haven't kept in touch or anything like that, but I'm sure that it's in the background because the crazy thing is, and this is like a little sidebar, is about a year ago during the middle of lockdown and all that stuff, my daughter was like watching Netflix one day and she stumbled on this show and she was watching Big Show's TV show. And I kept hearing the song and I go, honey, you want to know something? She goes, what? My daughter's 7. I'm like, that's Daddy singing the song. And she's like, what? You know him? Like she had like an aha moment because we never had that conversation because I think still now that she's kind of understanding what Daddy does for a living and everything. But like, and now she like, and then she tells people at school and they think she's and I'm like, well, here's a picture of Daddy with it. I'm like, we could prove this. I could come in someday. But she was like, and then it became her favorite TV show. So, but yeah, we never had written anything up to that point, you know? So honestly, I don't know if I want to because we did that one. Like, what are we going to do after that?
How do you top it? Right.
How do we top that?
Exactly. It's such a big song, such a memorable voice that you have. Now, do you get invited to karaoke nights? Because I'm sure your friends would just not let you even go up on stage.
Oh, karaoke and me are always interesting because no matter where I go, especially in this town, because I'm well known in my hometown. And you know, so sometimes I go to karaoke and I just want to hang out and listen to other people. But obviously it comes like, hey man, when you get up and sing a song, or even when I go see a band, they're like, you want to come up and sing a song? I mean, I can't complain about it. It's who I am, but you know, but it is funny. But I've been hired just to go to weddings to sing, well, you know, I get to do that as people go like, hey, we're introducing the bride and the groom. And I get up and I'll literally get paid to just sing that part and sing the Big Show theme song in person. It's funny. And everyone's like, did you really do that? I'm like, yeah. Because that's the thing, like millions and millions and millions of people hear my voice all the time and have over the years. They don't even know who the hell I am. I could be sitting next to them. I'm sitting next to them at WWE events. I go, that's me. And they're like, get out of here. And then I have to actually do it. And they're like, oh my God, it is you. Because I'm a face. Just a voice, not a face, you know?
Right. So you have ventured into Twitch. You are a Twitch streamer. How did you get into using this platform?
COVID. Well, I mean, up till then, I've been a professional musician for a little over 20 years, and it's been my full-time job. And up until right before COVID happened, I was playing 275 to about 325 gigs a year up and around New York State and the Northeast, mainly with my piano and sometimes with my band. And then all of a sudden, I was aware of what Twitch was because I was part of the morning show here in Syracuse, and we started using Twitch on there, and I was like, wow, I could probably, if I went over here, maybe I won't have to work as much. Because now that my daughter's getting older and I'm a single dad, it's just like I'm trying to find time and not run out the door. Even though I'm not a touring musician, I'm still a working musician, and that's not an easy life, and it takes a lot of time away from personal things. So I wanted to make the leap to Twitch, but how do you do that when you got a schedule that's you doing all that? But then all of a sudden, COVID and lockdowns hit, and then I have no gigs. So I just was like, all right, well, I'm going to jump into the world of Twitch. And I had a couple of step ups, to get me a little bit further along. And there was a captive audience. I have a huge social media following. So I'm just like, hey, everyone come over to Twitch. And in one short year time, that's how I make my living now. Like I sit here in this studio mainly, and the live gigs that are coming back are like little things that I do on the side. And Twitch is my thing. So it's such a crazy platform. That could be a whole other conversation for another day, is what has happened in that time in the past year.
And do you have a lot of great covers on Twitch, on YouTube, and you also post videos on Facebook? Well, one of my favorite covers that you have is Take On Me. So perfect. What has one of your favorite covers been that you have?
That was one of them. And for years I had always played it, but I'd always tried to play it like the original. And I think one day it just kind of like, I'm going to slow it down. And I was at some just restaurant here in Syracuse, nothing elaborate. And I kind of did the version that you heard and that I recorded. And I did that. And I was like, and the whole place, like normally at restaurants, everyone's like, there's a little clap or a little pitter patter after every song, or sometimes there's nothing. After that, there was like a resounding, I'm like, wow, I'm onto something here, So I'm like, what am I doing? This is pretty cool. So that is definitely one of my favorite covers that I've done, and it resonated. But I record 5 to 6 covers a week and put up on Facebook, and then once in a while I'll put them up onto YouTube. So over the course of like the past 6 years, I've probably recorded, 700 or 800 different videos and covers. I play 4,000 songs. As of right now, I could do 4,000 songs at the drop of a hat.
That's so impressive.
It's ridiculous is what it is. I don't know how my brain does it, but it does.
You mentioned your band. Along with your band, Brand New Sin, you've had the opportunity to be on ESPN, MTV. You even were in School of Rock. Can you tell us a little bit about these experiences?
Oh, man. Well, let's start with ESPN. That was like when our first Brand New Sin record came out was in 2002. We were playing in New York City. I can't remember exactly what club it was, or if we were playing at one of the small theaters there, opening from somebody. And some of the people from ESPN, the ESPN's music director, had come out and saw us afterwards. And it was one of those things like, hey, I'm going to take your music back. I think we're going to use it in the Stanley Cup Finals. And they did. They licensed a couple of songs. And then that guy was the music director over at ESPN. And then he just started licensing our songs for, football games and, just those little things. Like you're cut into a commercial and you hear a little bit of a riff, or you hear some singers, stuff like that. So they did that. But the biggest one is that they did was during the Stanley Cup Finals. They used a 2.5-minute clip of one of our songs during like a, highlight of what was going on during the Stanley Cup. MTV, the main thing that happened over there, other than our videos being played on like Headbangers Ball, was that the guys in Jackass, Bam Margera, and those guys became fans of the band. And then they started using our music on Viva La Bam and Home Wreckers and stuff like that. So once again, it was just these things as we started to get more exposure, and, some of the people that were higher up in media started doing all that, and then so ESPN, MTV, that was a roundabout thing too, because the guy that owned our very first record label our first record label was a very small independent record label out of New Jersey. And his really good friend was extras casting director for Paramount, and called him and said, hey, I'm looking for guys that look like they're in bands for this new Jack Black movie that's shooting in New Jersey and in Staten Island over the next 6 months. Do you have any guys on your label that would, look the part? We just need we need people to be in the background. We finally get the call. We go down to Parsippany, New Jersey to go to casting one day. We had played a show in Ithaca, New York, which is just south of Syracuse. We didn't sleep. We just drove there. We're smelling, probably drunk. We walk into casting at 6 a.m, and all these people are there trying to look like rock stars. And we just rolled in from a show. So we go into the casting room and they're like, who are you guys? Are you actors? We're like, no, we're just a band. They're like, all right, tell everyone else to go home. We found the band that we need for this scene. So then we spent, a week on set there for a couple of scenes. I mean, we're in such small parts. I literally have to be like, there it is. There it is. But if you look up Brand New Sin, School of Rock on YouTube, there will be fan videos that posted up, and they have the parts of where you can kind of see us in the background. But what had happened while we were on this set the first time, we were only supposed to be there for that one scene. or those couple of scenes, they wanted us for the final scene to be continuity throughout the movie. So we were gone on the road 2 months later in like San Antonio, Texas, and we get a call from a manager. They're like, you got to come back to New York City. We're like, we're in the middle of Texas. They're like, you got to be here in 2 days. We're like, all right, we got to go. And, back to New York City we went for that. And it was during that trip that Jack Black had, heard our band finally. And he came up to us and said, hey, I want to use one of your songs somewhere in the movie. And you can barely hear it, but he got it in the movie, which means it gets us paid. And that movie's become such a successful movie that, I make a couple $100 every year because of that movie. And the coolest thing about that movie was we became friends with all those kids who are now like 30 years old, which makes you feel old. Yeah. But they could only be on set for so long every day. So they had to do schooling, and then we would sit there and jam with these kids because they were all legit musicians. So we would have jam sessions with these kids on the set. And that was, again, a whole other... I've led an interesting life. Every time I talk about it, I'm like, man, I've done some pretty cool things along the way, and that definitely being one of them. So,
and bringing up your interesting life that you have, you do so much. You even do podcasting. Yes. You interview musicians and you talk about the business. What got you into podcasting?
I like talking. Well, I mean, honestly, I was doing the morning show, K-Rock here in Syracuse, New York. And I started becoming a regular on the morning show a couple times a week. And the guy that hosts the morning show came to me. He's like, man, you really should just do a podcast because you have all these amazing stories and you have all these amazing friends and people in the business. And you like talking about your stories in the music industry. Plus, like, my passion outside of music is like fitness. I love, because a few years ago, like go back 4 years ago, I weighed 280 pounds. I was an athlete growing up. And then I got into the rock and roll lifestyle and I got put on all this weight. And then I got, just not healthy, mentally and physically. So then I got myself healthy again on every level. So that's got incorporated in a podcast. And then I'm also into like conspiracy theories and all these things. So my podcast is really music based, but if I can find interesting people to talk to, I will get the stories that come out of that. But now I'm getting ready to launch another podcast that is centric just on wellness, because that has been such a huge resonator amongst my fan and the people on social media about my fitness journey and my mental health journey and the battles of anxiety and panic disorder that I've had. And we're making a centric one just for that I'm going to be launching in the next few months. So, I mean, you guys obviously have a podcast. It's fun, right?
Yeah, it is.
Fun to just chat with people and get stories from them. So, but yeah, it's the Just Joe podcast is the one that I have now. And you can find that on all the mediums that you get all that. And the new one, as I got the .com and everything, it's going to be called the Rockin' Bodcast, like B-O-D, bod. Because back in the 80s, like, man, he's got a rockin' bod or she's got a rockin' bod. So came up with it. So that's going to be the Rockin' Bodcast. But I'm putting that in an incubator right now and letting that kind of get its feet for a little bit. So you're letting it marinate, which is always great. Always great. Joe, now, Lo and I have a love for your theme song, of course. And from the beginning of mine and Lo's friendship, like, she has known that I just go around the house singing this song because it's just such a big part of my childhood. And like, I'll sometimes just voice me singing just that little intro. But we are now at the point of the podcast where we're going to have our well off. So we're going to see who can sing it better, or if you can give us some tips, training on how to improve it. So would you be so kind as to give us an example of what it should sound like? We had recorded the entire song and had that in the bag, like the whole song was done. And then Jim is like, well, now we got to do the most important part of the theme song. So he's like, all the band members out, you guys go to catering or go wherever. Me and Joe are going to work together and work on this opening thing. I'm like, well, it's simple. I just go, do that. But I was doing it. It's very hard because I think you can find the original theme song still somewhere on there. And that old one had a very bluesy kind of, it was a very different style. So I kept trying to kind of mimic that a little bit. And then he's like, no, he goes, we're trying to get away from that. There's something new, introduce it. So then I was doing it like really hard. And like, I'm like, okay, I'm attacking this. And then we're literally I must have sang that well like 50 times in like an hour to get that to where it was. And finally he's like, man, just let it come out. Don't think about it and just say it, you know, and just kind of take a breath in and just go, like that. And then all of a sudden I did that. And he goes, that's it. And I go, but it doesn't seem like I did much with it. And he's like, dude, but you did. He goes, you're not thinking about it. And it was just a simple, and that was when I just finally, because I would try to, for a while, I was trying to go, well, I was trying to do that, or well, like that. And then I was just like, well, just like that. And he's like, that's it. I'm like, I could have done that an hour ago. That was 50 takes. But yeah, it's just simple. Take that big breath and just go, well, that's it.
The way I'm intimidated right now.
Oh, it's not intimidating. I mean, I was intimidated. Trust me. That was one of the most, in a studio setting, that was one of the most stressful moments ever. So I'm like, you know, and all of the brass from WWE were on the other side of the glass because they were all coming in. You know, Vince wasn't there that day, but everybody else was. And they're all looking at me. I'm like, and I'm going to be honest, I was really hungover that day from the show the night before. So all of us were. So when you hear that theme song now, know that I felt like complete that day. I'm like, why did I do this? I just come into the biggest song of my career because I couldn't, like, I went to bed at like 5 a.m, was at the studio at 8. That was a bag of that day, but I made it happen somehow. So, but yeah, it's just, well, and you got to get a little, you know, got to hit that diaphragm, you know. So is it up to you guys now am I judging who's going to have the better here?
I think we should do it together, Iridian.
I think we should. No, because what if one is longer than the other? I feel like you know what, Lo? I'm going to let you go first. I'm going to be courteous.
Oh, gosh.
Uh-huh. Go ahead. I can't listen while you do it.
Big breath, close the eyes, just let it happen.
Well.
That was great.
I mean, that was good.
That was
good. All right.
Oh, Lord Jesus. Well.
Ooh, see that one you follow more. Now go back to low. Now do it. Just relax a little bit more this time. Don't try to do any like Christina Aguilera twirls. Just whirl, just straight ahead like a car going down, like a train going down the track. Whirl, just like that.
Okay. Well.
There you go. That was better. That was way better. All right, now go back. Now you won up. Oh
my God, I gotta, man.
Do it again.
Well.
Simple. Because that's all it is. Because once somebody hears that, they're like, there it is, you know?
I'm breathing so heavy right now, guys. On a Saturday morning, I believe that you were stressed out recording this, Joe.
Yes, definitely.
I was, you know, slowly sweating out, you know, booze from the night before. So, you know, crazy.
This has been such a great experience having you on, Joe. Thank you for joining us. Can you let us know where the people can find you?
You can find, if you you Google search Just Joe, I come right up. It's my website. And then that'll lead you down the rabbit hole to everything else. You know, Just Joe Syracuse on Twitch, Just Joe Syracuse. If you put Just Joe Syracuse in the Google search, it'll also bring up my Instagrams, my Twitter handle. I'm not as active on Twitter. I'm really more active on Instagram and Facebook, and then the YouTube. You'll find everything really there. But if you go to that justjoe.com, which is the easiest .com ever, and that will just kind of spur you out to everything else that I do out there. I got a really good website that kind of brings that all together. So then you don't have to remember what is this handle here and handle there and everything else. So yeah, and I got content left and right. And I have high functioning anxiety. So there's always something coming out of me at some point because I just can't sit still.
Well, thank you, Joe, so much for joining us. And we will be practicing our wells.
Yes.
And thank you.
Practice and we'll reconvene at some point and we'll see how your progress is being made.
No, there's going to be an update. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Wrestling Winedown. You can find all of our other episodes available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and wherever else you listen to your podcast. We're also on Twitter and Instagram at WWDCAST. Let us know what you thought about the episode. What was your favorite part? Until next time, enjoy your wine and, of course, enjoy your wrestling. Cheers!